Today, I wanted to talk about some of the things that I'm seeing in the market for the last 12 to 18 months. I'm really seeing job hoppers starting to get penalized for their past decisions. Whether it's fair or not, I want to give you a heads up of what to think about if you're thinking about making a job change. I have changed jobs and that has worked out rather well for me personally. However, I'm seeing a lot of people now, especially over the last 3 to 5 years when the tech market was insanely hot. They made job changes within every year or so. And really now, if they're not performing and they need to find a new job, it's really starting to get held against them. I do think job hopping can be absolutely advantageous throughout your career. However, I just want to walk through my thought process today of when to make a change and how to justify if it's actually worth taking on that risk. Because I think especially now, a lot of people with how hot the market has been have not seen it as risk. They're like, oh, I'll make that change, and if it doesn't work out, whatever, I'll find another job, right? And if you think back to 2021, 2022, I literally had recruiters in my inbox every single day asking me to interview at different companies. And I'm still getting quite a lot of asks to interview. I'm not looking to make a job change anytime soon. I'm very fortunate to be in a great position where I'm at now. However, I do think that there's a lot of people, it's a really funny phenomenon. I coach a lot of SDRs, I coach a lot of people breaking into tech sales, and it's really funny how when you get to that 6 to 9 months of good performance, you like your job, you're starting to figure it out, you're making, call it 80K, right? Everything's great, you're really enjoying the job. Some recruiter reaches out and offers an interview for a company that wants to pay you 120, and all of a sudden, your job that's paying you 80K seems like a complete waste of time. It seems so stupid. You feel like you're so underpaid, like you're getting ripped off by your company. And while there can be some valid times to make a job change for pay, I think people act really irrationally, really emotionally, and take on, without realizing it, a lot of risk if they make a quick job change too soon. So let me break down from the perspective of tech sales what I would recommend and just how to think about making job changes strategically throughout your career. If you're an SDR, like in my case, I broke into tech sales as an SDR in my late 20s. I was 28 and I had a huge chip on my shoulder. I wanted to promote as fast as possible because I realized I wish that I had started in tech sales right out of college. So I had 5 years of opportunity basically gone because I could have been promoted within that time frame in tech sales. And yeah, I just wanted to catch up really bad. I had tons of people in my inbox all the time. However, the mindset that I had, I don't even know why I had this, but it was like in years 1 and 2, I want to establish a track record of top performance before I really entertain anything else. And that has served me incredibly well versus taking the first offer on the table. Again, when you're an SDR, right, you want to get to account executive. I get it, and that's absolutely something you should foster. Just mentally in your mind, give yourself 12 to 18 months, and ideally 12 to 18 months within the company that you're at. Because I think the best case scenario is if you're an SDR right now and you get promoted within your own company, that is a badge of approval to everyone in the world that you did very well as an SDR and promoted to account executive. Now, I'm not saying don't go from SDR at one company and then go to AE at another company. But what I will say, and what a lot of people act irrationally and emotionally about and don't consider, is that if you're an SDR at your current company and someone reaches out and you go to account executive at a different company, well, if you fail in that account executive role, what that tells me as a potential recruiter, if I'm interviewing you, is maybe you didn't do that great as an SDR, but you got lucky and someone reached out and wanted you to become an account executive. And now, say you're a year into that role interviewing elsewhere, maybe you're not doing that great as an account executive either. Why should I, trust that you're going to be in a good position? Versus, again, the converse case, I'm not saying one is right or wrong, just something to consider. If you're an SDR at your company promotes you to account executive and you've been an account executive for 6 months, now if you're interviewing externally, I could totally buy into the fact that you've been a top performer for a year and a half and you feel you're getting underpaid. And that's exactly what happened in my case. The first company that I was at, I crushed it as an SDR. I got promoted in 3.5 months. 2 years in a row, I was the #1 rep selling our cloud product in the entire company. It really got to a point where I made it very clear that I wanted to promote to an enterprise account executive. I knew it would take time, but there just wasn't a path after numerous conversations with management, etc. And because I really didn't have a path to grow, and importantly, because I had 2 years of a track record as a #1 President's Club top performer, I then at that point felt it was justified to look elsewhere, and I actually found someone that was willing to double my salary and give me a promotion to an enterprise account executive. that worked out in my favor. That is something that, again, I only did because I felt after numerous years of top performance, I was being underpaid. And that's a decision that made sense and has paid off very well. And now I'm in a position, because I have caught up to, that opportunity cost of not having started out of tech sales in college, I've caught up to where I really feel I should be in an account executive role. And I don't feel the need now to job hop, or all the people in my inbox asking me for, being an enterprise account executive or a sales director at these new companies. I'm not really interested. I'm in a great spot. I'm learning a lot. And I feel no need at this point. Like, what is a 10 to 30% pay raise at this point when I already have a very high OTE? This brings up another great point. Again, if you're an SDR right now, or maybe an entry-level account executive making anywhere from, call it 80K to 120K, it's really exciting. It's really enticing if you're that SDR to see your first ever offer to interview for a 6-figure salary. However, what I would encourage you, really the exponential return on a tech sales career really starts to happen around maybe year 3 to year 5. There's always exceptions, don't get me wrong. But again, what is going from 80K OTE to 110K OTE as an SDR, job hopping from one company to the other, versus if you stay at that company, you go from 80K in year 1, they maybe promote you up to 110, 120K in year 2, but now you've got 2 solid years of top performance, and a huge company with a renowned training and sales program comes to you and wants to pay you 220. This is the leverage that's really hard for people to buy into. And I get it, right? Like, if you're not making the money you want to make and someone comes and offers that right away, it sounds great. But especially in sales, there's so many companies that on the surface are like, let me pay you 200K, let me pay you 250K. No one's hitting their number. They have unrealistic quotas. They don't have great sales leadership. And ultimately it burns you in the long run, because you make that change, you more or less make the same amount of money you were already making. And now you go there for a year and fail. You're in a really tough spot if someone doesn't pick you up before you ultimately get laid off or you lose your job for any reason, right? And again, that's a doomsday, worst case scenario. There's been a lot of people where it does work out, but I just want to help you better understand optically, it's not always greener. The grass is not always greener. And even if you're hitting your number now and you're like, man, I'm hitting 100% of my number now and I'm making 80K. If I hit 100% of my number at this new company, I'll make 120. People get very emotionally caught up in that and just really make a decision that can hinder them long term. So anyway, all that to say, I want to give you a few pointers and just kind of summarize what I've talked about here, because I do think there are scenarios where it makes sense to job hop. If you've spent more than a year at your company, you've made it very clear where you want to go, you have a track record to back up the fact that you deserve to be promoted and or get a salary increase. If there's no clear path there for the next 6 to 12 months at your company, the management team is not willing to work with you to create a path to grow, et cetera, yeah, at that point, start looking, start fixing your resume, have a very clear ask of what you want. And definitely, if you're at the account executive role, yeah, maybe a lateral promotion. I don't recommend, honestly, if you're at an SDR role and you've been there for a year plus, to really just take another SDR role. Try at a minimum to get an enterprise SDR role, or ideally an account executive role. Again, assuming you've already done 12 months there, not just like 3 to 6 months. 2, again, always move up. So if you're at an SMB account executive level role, you've hit your number, you feel you're being underpaid, or you didn't get the promotion you thought you wanted, now you've got a lot of leverage. Don't take the first thing that comes to your door. But for instance, someone I worked with recently was at a company they weren't super excited about, and they didn't really want to work there anymore. They had a track record to back up their performance, and they just made a move from 140 OTE to go to 180 OTE, and they have a better title as well. And in that scenario, again, they've got over 2 years at a really solid company. They were promoted from SDR to account executive. They ultimately got to a point where they were no longer happy there. And they made a change then from account executive at this company to a slightly higher title with higher compensation, account executive at a new company. That's a great change because, again, at the company they were at previously, they clearly demonstrated they were worthy of getting a promotion. And I would look at that experience as a recruiter or as a hiring manager and say, yeah, 2 years there, promoted, wasn't happy, now wants to make a change. Makes sense. I get it, right? And people with a lot of experience that have worked multiple jobs can understand that scenario, particularly in a career like sales that's performance-based, that has people who are driven, that want to make more money all the time, et cetera, et cetera. So there's no right answer here. If you're in that career, especially in year 1 or 2, I would really, as hard as this can be sometimes, focus on working for a great manager, focus on working at a great company, get a track record of a year or 2 of really solid and proven experience as a top performer. And at that point, your leverage goes up exponentially. Instead of getting a job offer from, going from 80K to 120K, you're gonna start as you get to that account executive role. Say you're making 120 as an account executive, then making the move from 120K to 200K plus is where you really make the most money. And it's really hard to buy into. It's really easy to get short-sighted and be emotional and irrational about it. But if you can play that long game, if you can wait at least 12 to 18 months to look externally, you're gonna have so much more leverage. Recruiters will take you that much more serious. And again, you decrease the risk of having multiple stints of less than a year or right at a year at numerous companies, and your market value goes up substantially. And yeah, just a lot of benefits, at least to playing a little bit longer of a game, as hard as it can be sometimes. So I hope that helps. Again, if you're ambitious and you want to keep promoting, I encourage you to foster that, but don't make an emotional, irrational decision that sets you up to fail. And hopefully that helps you make the best decision going forward. Thanks.